and I was looking at the concept of leadership. Leadership was called by Jesus for his disciples to be leaders. I've always had this thing that to search for leadership on its own is not right. It has to be connected to something. And I knew what that was, but I just needed confirmation, as it were. Now, this was never about looking for speculative assumptions, but genuine calls by Jesus himself of what leadership was. However, what came up may surprise you. It didn't me, but it may surprise you. Looking directly at Jesus' teaching that we see in the Gospels, there are several instances where he calls his disciples to a specific form of leadership model on servanthood. These aren't just principles, but explicit calls to action. If you look at Mark 10:42-45, after James and John, in that famous request, ask for honour and to sit on his left and right side, Jesus contrasts the world's leadership model with his own. He says, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all." It's interesting to note that that left side and right side of being on God either came through a lifetime of serving or to die for the cause of righteousness. James was martyred. John lived his whole life serving Jesus. Just a preamble on that. In Matthew 20:26-28, Jesus states, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." The most dramatic illustration comes in John 13:12-17, where after washing his disciples' feet, Jesus says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." Jesus set the model. He set the template. In Luke 22:24-27, it records another, you could call it a rebuke. The disciples argue about who is the greatest. Jesus says, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, but you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest or the least, and the one who rules like the one who serves." Now, these aren't vague principles, but specific calls to action, connecting the concepts of leadership and servanthood as inseparable components of discipleship in Jesus' teaching. As one who has seen myself as a servant leader, I've often said, I wonder how many people that go to leaders' conferences will go to servants' conferences. I do believe that my focus is to be one who serves first and foremost in love. So this all came as no surprise to me when I read it. But moving forward, for many Christians at times, this may include me, it does include me, there needs to be a paradigm shift. Jesus was instituting something that was a key foundation, and that was that love should always be central when we lead. We should lead through service. The focus isn't on attaining a position of leadership. It's not about being a pastor or an evangelist or an apostle, but it's about something more. It's about a desirable quality rather than leadership itself. It's defined and validated by service. Our emphasis on love is critical because it elevates the service beyond mere duty or function. It makes people themselves central and not something to wear as a badge of honour. So, service, it's an action. It's an overflow of our hearts. This is what Paul later articulates in 1 Corinthians 13:1-3, where he states that without love, even the most radical acts of service or sacrifice are worthless. This servant-first mindset transformed the nature of authority. Instead of being about control or privilege, it becomes about responsibility and empowerment. The true measure of your leadership isn't how many people you serve, but how many people are served, equipped, and built up by you. It's about leadership, a leadership that leads with a towel and not a sceptre. This is love, therefore, and not tyranny, or thinking that as one who will lead, we are the godly depositories of all knowledge and Mr. Do-Right. Both John and Paul would elevate this service of love above that of leadership. This is what is absolutely right, and what pinpoints the crucial distinction that defines authentic Christian leadership. Servant love, not lordship, leadership, are what shows a mature leader. So then after Jesus walks on the earth and the template is set for leadership, both John and Paul do indeed place service in love as the supreme qualifier for any leadership role, because they both see it and know it has a name. John, particularly in his first epistle, makes this his central theme. He doesn't just suggest love, agape in the Greek, is important. He states it is definitive and powerful, and it's how we serve. We know that we have passed from death to life because we love each other. 1 John 3:14. He equates the lack of love with spiritual death and asserts that anyone who claims to know God but doesn't love is a liar. 1 John 4:20. For John, love isn't a fruit of leadership. Leadership, if it is to be genuine, must be a fruit of love. Without love, any claim to leadership or knowledge is empty. Paul takes this even further, especially in 1 Corinthians 13, which many often allude to without truly knowing it. He systematically dismantles the idea that knowledge, spiritual gifts, or leadership positions have any inherent value. He says he could speak with the tongues of angels, have all faith to move mountains, or even give away all he has to the poor. But if he does it without love, he is nothing and gains nothing. He explicitly states, but the greatest of these is love. In Corinthians, in the passage on the spiritual gifts in chapter 12, he follows his list of gifts with the entire chapter on love as the more excellent way. The gifts, including leadership, are functional, but love is the foundation. For Paul, a leader devoid of love is like a resounding gong, a lot of noise, but no substance. This directly confronts the depository of all knowledge mentality that can lead to tyranny. A leader who sees themselves as the sole keeper of truth will inevitably use that position to control. A servant leader, however, who sees themselves as a steward of love, will use their position to empower and to elevate and to lift others up. The focus shifts from, you must listen to me because I know what I talk about, to, let us serve one another because we love each other. That's the fundamental difference between shepherding the flock and fleecing it. In this, we in fact establish that Jesus explicitly called his disciples to be servant leaders, not merely practice servanthood as a separate virtue. This was demonstrated through direct gospel passages such as Mark 10:42-45 and John 13:12-17, where Jesus redefines greatness as service and positions himself as the ultimate example. The focus of this leadership is rooted and must be in love. The core principle discussed in this radical redefinition of leadership in Christian tradition, unlike worldly models that equate leadership with power and authority, Jesus' model inverts this hierarchy. To lead is to serve first and foremost. This isn't servanthood as an add-on to leadership, but leadership as an expression of servanthood. The writings of John and Paul were presented as reinforcing this idea. For John, love is the definitive proof of the true disciple. Think about that, the definitive proof. And it is non-negotiable. It is a foundation for any claim to leadership. For Paul, love is the most excellent way that gives meaning and substance to all spiritual gifts, including leadership, rendering all knowledge or position worthless without it. This framework directly opposes the godly depository of all knowledge that some leaders seem to have, the mindset which can lead to tyranny, and replaces it with the model of empowering others through sacrificial love. Authentic Christian leadership is not a title to be attained, but a posture to be embodied. The defining characteristic is not the authority one wields, but the depth of one's service in love. The call from Jesus is clear. Greatness is found not in being served, but in serving. John and Paul elevate this, making love the supreme, non-negotiable prerequisite, asserting that without it, any exercise of leadership is hollow and meaningless. Therefore, a true servant leader leads with a towel, not a scepter, motivated by the love that seeks to build up rather than to tear down or control. Ask yourself this daily. If this describes Jesus, does it describe me? Hello, everybody that said hi. I was just reading an article out that I'd written this morning. So how is everybody today? Hello to you all, and God bless you. No questions or anything? You're good. Good. That's good to hear that you're good. Any questions? Okay, well, hello everybody that said hello. God bless you and be with you, and I hope you have a great day in love. I'll pray for you now. Dear Lord, be with my brothers and sisters as they live the life in you today. Bless them and be with them and guide them. Amen. See you later, folks. I'll see you on the flip side.